So, this book is a story about you and me. It's more than a story of people that lived a long time ago. It's your story, it's my story. And as we read these stories every week, I hope that you see yourself here. It's not far removed. It's very close. Please pray with me. God, we love you, and we want to know more about you. We want to get to know you more. You are our God, our Savior, and sometimes you're very distant, but we want to draw close to you right now. Help us to do that. Amen. Our story today is found in John chapter 12. It's also in your programs. John chapter 12, we're beginning verses 1 through 8. John 12, 1 through 8. And this is the story. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, a location, a city, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus, her brother, was one of those reclining at table with Jesus. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. The house filled with the fragrance of this perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, he who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with you, but you do not always have me." And the story continues from that point on. So let's paint this story. So we have Jesus who comes into Bethany just before the Passover, 6 days before the Passover. And Passover was this huge holiday where everyone came from everywhere to one spot to worship God, to celebrate this great feast, this great time with family, with friends. They came to this one spot, and Bethany was just over the hill from Jerusalem, and Jesus decided that that's where he would stay because they were going to throw him this dinner. They wanted to bring him in as this guest of honor. So that he came into Bethany, where he had stayed many times before. One of his best friends, Lazarus, was there, who he had raised from the dead, and his sisters, Martha and Mary, were also there. Now, if you remember some other stories, if you know some other stories about Lazarus, Martha, and Mary, you've got this story of Martha where she's busy in the kitchen, a different party that she's, again, entertaining at, and she's busy in the kitchen, and she I assume, you can imagine, she brings out this platter of food, and she puts it down on this low table where everyone's reclining on pillows around it, and she puts down this platter, and she looks over, and she sees her sister, her younger sister, Mary, sitting down listening to the stories that Jesus is telling. And you can imagine, you know how siblings do. Like Martha, she sees her sister, Mary, and she's like, and Mary, she looks up and she's like, Martha, oh, I can't believe my sister won't help me in the kitchen, just lounging around with all the guests. When I'm busy in the kitchen, there's too much work to be done. And Martha's thinking, oh, it has to be perfect. The garnishes have to be set. Everything has to be plated just right. And I have to bring it all out. And she's just over there, and she goes back in the kitchen. She fumes some more as she puts some more stuff on a plate. She comes out with a smile for all the guests. She sits down. She's like, Mary just stays over there, and she comes back in, and then she comes back out, and she goes near Jesus, and she goes, "Can you tell Mary to help me in the kitchen?" And Jesus, he pauses from his story, and he says, "Thank you, but she's chosen something that's better." And he continues on with the story. Mary, she gets it. She deals with it later, and the story continues. But here Martha is again serving. This time, this is near Passover, so this is a very big deal. This is a lot of stress on her. And so you can imagine her in the kitchen, but this time she knows better than go to Jesus. He's not going to help her. And she comes out, and she's serving, and maybe she's figured some stuff out inside about this whole thing. And okay, Mary has her thing. She's listening. That's great and everything. I'm going to give Jesus what I'm going to give him. And so she serves Jesus and all of the guests there that day. So Martha is busy. She's busy, and she's giving of her talents. She can make the best hummus out of not just Bethany, but in Jerusalem. They bring it in. They go over to Bethany, and they import it, and they sell it in Jerusalem. It's so good. And so she's serving this, and she knows, and she has it just garnished just right. And everybody's praising her for her food. And she notices in particular that Jesus is enjoying it. That Jesus, the man that healed her life and brought her brother back from the dead, that when she was devastated, her brother had died, and Jesus had said, "Lazarus, come out," and Lazarus had come out of the tomb after 4 days of being in there. And she knew he must stink, but he walks out and is back in her life. An incredible miracle. This was the man that gave her so much, and she gave him everything that she could. She gave him her food and her hospitality, and she watched as Jesus enjoyed himself with his friends, with the people there that day, and was enjoying the food. It made her heart so glad. Around that table, there were also other people. There was also Lazarus, Martha and Mary's brother, and Lazarus was, and the story says that he was reclining at table with Jesus. So they ate a little different than we eat today. We sit in chairs, and we're up, sitting proper. Don't slouch and see, okay. And can't have your elbows on the table, and we have the forks and knives and everything just so, and with a lot of etiquette. And we nod, would you pass, things like that. But in those days, they had a very low table, and there lots of pillows around. And you'd lean on your left arm or right arm, depending on who you are, and you'd reach over, and you'd take the food, and you'd eat, and you just kind of chilled. You just relaxed, because eating is something special. And, laying down kind of helps with digestion, at least in their mindset. So they're laying down there, and they're just eating, and they're talking, and they're passing food, and they're just enjoying time. And Lazarus is there next to Jesus, right there next to Jesus. Can you imagine going to a dinner party and knowing that one of the people that you're going to see there was dead at one point, and now is like laughing and eating, and you heard the rumors, and you come to the dinner, and yep, he's alive. It's different. This is a Passover to remember. And so he's laying there right next to Jesus, and they're laughing, they're eating, they're enjoying each other's company. And we think of Jesus in certain respects. We have him kind of in a box. We have him, he's the one that we pray to. He's the one that died for us, the man on the pole, as I heard one person say. He's the one that did the miracles, but we don't think about enjoying time with Jesus. Now Lazarus, it's funny. Martha was angry at Mary not being in the kitchen, but Lazarus, it was okay. It was okay. It's her brother. So he's laying there at the table, and he's just enjoying time with Jesus. He's giving to Jesus too. He's giving Jesus his time, his attention, his his friendship. And this is what he's giving to, so Martha's giving wonderful, delicious food. Lazarus is giving his laughter, probably some jokes, probably some at his expense. Oh, you're dead, you know. And so this is happening. And then you've got Mary. Now, Mary had a very unique relationship with Jesus. She had a very different past than her sister. Her sister that was at home was very well known in the community in a positive way. Martha was known for hospitality and for her ability. But Mary, she was known around town too. I don't think, some people paint her as a prostitute. I really don't think she was a prostitute. I don't think that she earned a living doing shady things. I think, though, that she had a lot of friends. I think she had a lot of relationships. I think that she got a lot of attention from men, not the best kind of men, because her name is Mary Magdalene. She's known as Mary Magdalene, but as we know from the story, she's from Bethany. So for her to get a name of another town, that's one thing, and for that particular town to be where a Roman garrison is stationed, a soldier town. This is the Marine base. This is the army camp. She's known for that location. It tells something about where she was seeking attention, and so Mary, she couldn't live up to the standard of her sister. Her brother, I imagine, would have been very protective of her, but you know, there must have been some sort of disrelationship there. And then she meets this guy named Jesus, and he pays attention to her in a very different way than anyone who had ever paid attention to her before. He wasn't interested in what all the other men were interested. He cared about her. He would listen to her thoughts, her feelings, her stories, her past life, and sometimes it felt as though he knew it all before she even said it. And when she talked to him, he looked her in the eyes. He listened to her stories, and he even sat through her tears. He helped her when she had these demons from her past. When they would come up, he would pray for her, and those things would dissipate, would leave her. She heard the voice of Jesus praying to the Father on her behalf, hearing him plead for God to act in her life, and God did. And she had all of this relationship with Jesus in that capacity. And so when he's there in her family home, in this extended family home, she comes in with this one intention. She had gone out to the market, probably in Jerusalem, because it was just over the hill. Jerusalem was the Las Vegas, so to speak, of tourism. Everybody came to to Jerusalem many times a year. They came from all over because this is where the temple was. This is where, and you're required to actually not just give your tithe and your offerings to God at the temple, but there was also a second tithe that you would bring, the second 10% that you would bring to Jerusalem, and you spent it at Jerusalem. Every couple of years, you would come and spend 10% of your income in this one location because God said, and you shall celebrate before the Lord your God. That's the commandment just as much as any of the other 10. You shall celebrate. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God. And so you're to spend this 10% on anything that you want. You walk in there and you act like you're a rich person for a week, and you buy meat, you buy wine, you buy all kinds of great things, and you just enjoy time with your family in this space that is known by the name of the Lord God of heaven. And so they have everything there that you could possibly buy, and so Mary, she probably bought this box of ointment of nard there, and she brought it into this time, this space where I can't imagine she was too welcome, which is interesting because this was, her brother was there, her sister was catering, Jesus was there, and yet if we read the other stories about her, she doesn't seem to be invited. But she comes anyway, and she does it very carefully because these guests are around this table, and she just kind of sneaks in there, and she has this little box, and she looks at, I imagine, she walks into this room, and she sees Jesus. But at the same time, she sees all these people around this table that she knows their perception of her reputation. She's heard the things that they've whispered in front of her. She knows what these people think of her, but she's there for Jesus. Not because of all these people. She's here because of Jesus. And so she comes in very quietly, very carefully. She comes in, and she goes over to where Jesus is. Now remember, they're lying down at this table. And so their heads are near the table so they can talk to each other, and their feet are out, stuck out, kind of like a flower, like that. So she goes around to the feet of Jesus, and she does something that was culturally appropriate in those days to wash someone's feet, because you walk around and stuff gets on their animals and dust and crazy stuff. So it's kind of nasty eating with nasty feet. So she went down there and she opened this box. You actually had to break it, and she broke this, and she poured out this very strong, very pungent but sweet ointment over his feet. And in another part of the Gospels, it says that she also put it on his head, and it just kind of came down around him on his hair, and then she poured it on her feet. And I imagine that when she saw his feet, just his feet, she thought, this is the man that has done everything for me. And all those stories, all of that experience that she had with him just came overwhelmingly back. And she had heard before that he said that he was going to die. Now it didn't seem like it, but she just, all these emotions, she just it all overwhelmed her, and she starts weeping. As she's pouring this ointment on Jesus' feet, she starts weeping, and her tears begin to mingle with the ointment on his feet, and she just doesn't know what to do, but she wants to be close to him, but she can't be close to him, and she is just overwhelmed, and she realizes what's happening, I assume, and that it's making a huge mess everywhere, tears and the ointment and everything, and she starts taking her own hair, undoes her hair, and she starts wiping it off of his feet, and just whatever she can do. It's just this frantic desire to do something, and then kind of to undo it in a way. But and while this is all going on, she hears that the conversation shifts, it changes, and she realizes that she couldn't have done this quietly because this ointment was strong, and it filled the whole room, the whole place with the smell, the fragrance of this box. And being at dinner, you expect certain smells. You smell the food smells, and Martha keeps bringing out new food. The new smells are coming up, and it's wonderful. But then you smell something that's not food. It's very strong, it's overpowering, it's a pound of this stuff. And it's been going out into the air, and everyone's looking around, and the conversation changes, and then she heard this voice say, "What a waste. What a waste. Why didn't she think? Why didn't she use her brain if she has one? Because that's expensive. She just dumped it all on the floor." But that could have been sold and helped the poor. Look at her thinking about herself. She could have helped the poor with that money. Mary's there at the feet of Jesus doing the incredible act of devotion, demonstrating her love for her Savior, the one that saved her. And now she hears this criticism for this innocent, pure act of love and devotion. And suddenly she's aware that people are talking about her, which she's used to. She's aware that what she's done is somehow not good enough, somehow wrong. And she maybe even like gets up to about ready to leave, but then she hears the voice of Jesus. Now, let's look at a few chapters before in John. This is found in John chapter 12. If we go back 2 chapters in John chapter 10, Jesus, John, as he writes this gospel, he's not just recording stories because he remembers them. He's giving a particular point. And it's not just chapter by chapter, it's one story. Jesus in chapter 10 is described as explaining that he is the good shepherd, which is contrasted to the bad ones. He is the good shepherd that when he speaks, people hear his voice. His sheep hear his voice, and they answer. Okay? And then he goes on to explain that there's the good shepherd, and then there are thieves. And there are thieves that come in, and the thieves come in to steal, kill, and destroy. To move over to the next chapter, that's chapter 10, chapter 11, is a story of Lazarus, one of Jesus' closest friends during that time, and Lazarus dies. Jesus walks up to that tomb. He has the tombstone moved away, and he calls out. He says, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus, although he's dead, hears the voice of his good shepherd, and he comes out. And now you've got in chapter 12 someone who is described as, he said this not because, verse 6, he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. And Judas, after this story, he not only steals, but then he kills and he destroys. It's this story, it's this contrast between the people that hear the voice of God and respond and the ones that are thieves. This contrast. And so Judas, as he spreads this dissension, this what's the word? This contempt for an innocent gift, as he voices this criticism against Mary to all the other people at the table, Jesus then responds. Mary doesn't have to defend herself. Mary doesn't have to get up and run away shamefully. Jesus speaks. Jesus defends her because Jesus cares about his sheep. And when he speaks and he calls out Judas, he doesn't say, well, we would have had more money if you hadn't bought. He doesn't call Judas out. He says something that lets him know, I know what's going on. I know what you're doing. I've known all along. And Judas then has this opportunity to change without him being shamed also. And Judas at that point, after that point, he sees that Jesus, he's not going to be the one that he wants him to be. And so his heart changes, and after this he goes and he puts into action his thoughts of turning Jesus in and getting 30 pieces of silver for Jesus. It's fascinating that the gift of Mary, where did she get that kind of income? She didn't have some sort of, if she had a job, it wasn't very reputable. It was probably something very basic, like getting water for someone, or baking bread in a hot bakery, or sweeping, cleaning, something very not glorious. And she couldn't have bought a box of, have a year's worth of wages just sitting in her pocket, you know. I expect that this gift was actually purchased from gifts that she had gotten through the years from the different men that were in her life. I think she sold the bracelet, the coins, whatever she was given by her past lovers. I think she sold those things in order to get this for Jesus. I think that's how she got this money, a year's worth of wages that she could just waste completely on this one gift to Jesus. A year's worth. I looked up to see how much is 30 pieces of silver. They said probably about 6 months worth of wages. Mary gave Jesus everything she had, every good thing she had. She wasted it on Jesus for this act of devotion, and Judas sold Jesus for half that. When Jesus later on that week, this was 6 days before Passover, he rides into Jerusalem. People want to make him king. He steals away. He goes about the people teaching in the temple. People listen to what he has to say. They see that he's perfect, that he's innocent. And yet they crucify him. They demonstrate how terrible humanity goes, and how far sin will make someone rebel against their Creator, and kills Jesus on the cross. While Jesus is hanging there, a week later, they didn't bathe like we do as frequently. So Jesus, after that week, while he's hanging there, no longer surrounded by friends but by enemies, no longer with food but starving and emaciated. You can count all of his bones. He's not clothed in the clothing of a guest of honor, but instead he's hanging there naked on a cross. And while he's there and he hears all of these people ridiculing him, teasing him, taunting him, he can smell that perfume on his hair. He can smell that ointment in his nostrils, and he remembers the love that Mary has for him, the kind of devotion, the kind of thanks she's given to him. And he remembered, this is worth it. This is worth it, if only just for her. And in that moment, that time on the cross, Mary's act gave Jesus comfort. Mary gave Jesus comfort. And then he dies. His body is put in the tomb. After that, we know that Nicodemus and Joseph of Arimathea, these two very wealthy, very influential men who had up to this point been very silent about their belief in Jesus, they brought pounds upon pounds of ointment, rich, expensive stuff that they could afford. They put him in a brand new tomb that had never been used. They put him in there and they wrapped his body. They gave him the burial of royalty, of the elite. They put all this stuff with him. But Jesus was dead. Jesus didn't know what they were doing. He was dead. But for Mary, he could appreciate it. There's a funeral this afternoon at another church of someone who was fantastically God-like, very Christ-like, gave his life for other people. And it's sad that at funerals, we say all these wonderful things. We speak these wonderful words, and we tell these great stories about how this individual affected our lives and changed our lives in some way or another. And it's completely ironic and tragic that as we say all these wonderful things about this person, the person can't hear a word of it. Why do we wait? Why do we wait until someone's life is over in order to show them appreciation? Why do we wait to tell someone how much they mean to us? Why do we wait until it's too late to give them gifts and to show them how much they've meant to us? This is a completely made up story I'm about to tell you. Completely made up. You're a teacher's aide in a third grade classroom. You have worked in this classroom all year, wanting to earn your teaching credential. Third graders can be hard at times, but they're enjoyable too. And at the end of the class, on somewhere towards the end of the school year, it's almost the end of the day, and it's also your birthday, and the kids know it, the teacher knows it. 10 minutes before the dismissal bell rings, the teacher goes under her desk and she pulls out a tan box with a little fancy sticker seal on it that says Sprinkles Cupcakery. And so she brings this out and she sets it on her desk, and all the kids get excited, and she opens up the box and she says, well, it's your we have a birthday here, so let's sing happy birthday. And so she leads the class in a multi-pitched version of happy birthday, and they all sing happy birthday, and then a lot of the kids add all the verses that third graders know after they finish, and they're handing out cupcakes, and you're sitting there enjoying watching everyone just play and have fun for the last 10 minutes of class, and you're sitting there with your double chocolate cupcake with that perfect sprinkle on top. And so you're eating this and you're enjoying it. And then you notice one particular student who's down off to the side, one student who you've had to put a lot more energy into because of scholastic reasons as well as for behavioral reasons, and you poured a lot of yourself into this particular student, and you see him acting kind of strange because he's fidgeting with in his desk, and then he looks back at you, and then he fidgets in his desk, and he looks back at you, and you think, what's he doing now? And another something, but eventually he gets up and he walks forward to you, and you see him kind of watching, kind of gauging the social dynamics of the class, and he's, okay, they're distracting, so he comes over to you, and with this huge grin on his face, he produces from his jacket pocket this bundle, multicolored bundle, and he hands it to you. And he's just grinning, and he says, hey, I have this for you, happy birthday. He gives you this bundle, and you look down at it, and it's paper with stickers, but mostly stickers, and they're all jumbled together, and oh, thank you, and you open up this package, and you see inside of it this Ziploc bag, the half snack size ones with Oreo cookies that are partially crushed, and you assume partially crushed from his backpack and partially crushed from the packing ordeal that it went through, and you know this was probably saved from his lunch earlier that day, and you look down at him and you say, wow, thank you, and you see this grin just rip across his face, and he's just so excited, and this is really good, I'll eat this later today, thank you so much. And then his face changes after you hear this stifled snicker come from a desk just a little bit away from this girl that has icing on her face, and she's like, "Oh," with a a loud whisper, "Ew, what is that? What is that, a bag of dirt?" And then the girl sitting next to her, "It's probably his lunch." Ew, and they laugh together. And you look down and you see this quiver begin on his lower lip, and this overwhelming emotion that you can't quite identify, and you begin to, there's a pit in your stomach and your teeth clench, and you stand up and your eyes narrow at these two students. And with this exaggerated wave of your hand, you reach into this bag of disintegrating Oreo cookies. You pull two of them out and you shove them into your mouth, chomping loudly with breaks this, everyone's silent as they turn and they watch you, and you crumb it in your mouth and you hear and with a big cookie covered smile. "Those are good," you say. And you look around and you see all the other students laughing now, the disgust coming from those two girls, and then you look down at your little friend who's grinning from ear to ear again, and he runs and he grabs his backpack and he skips out of the classroom with a smile. And you think, that was the best dessert ever. And it really was. Jesus wants the things that you want to give him. He wants your time. He wants your gifts. He wants your attention. He wants to hear about your day. He wants to hear about the things that are going on inside of your life, the big things that are too big for you, and the small little insignificant things that you don't want to bother him with. He wants to hear them all. He wants to know about everything that's going on from you from your own mouth. He wants these gifts, no matter how small and insignificant, no matter how useless or puny or disintegrating. He wants them from you. He wants them to be given to him, and he wants to be lavished on with these things that just pour out your cares, your worries, your praises, your thanksgivings at his feet, to just pour them all over himself. And he just loves it. And they are the best gifts ever. If Jesus was right here in front of you right now, what would you give him? What would you give Jesus? If he was right here, he was going to spend the afternoon with you, what would you give him? Would you empty your life savings and run down to Macy's and buy a $30,000 bottle of Chanel, and pour it on his feet? Are you going to go out and buy a Prius for him because he cares about the environment? What are you gonna do for him? Or maybe you're gonna take him to lunch at that little hole-in-the-wall Thai restaurant that you know, the only you know about, that's really good, and you know the owner, and you just want to take him to that restaurant because the food is so amazing, and you just want to sit there and talk with him. Or what are you going to give him? Or are you going to walk up to him and say, "Hey, can I borrow $30?" Give to Jesus your gifts. Give him your time, your cares. Give him yourself. He wants more than just things. He wants your devotion. And in any way you give that to him, he will love it. He will enjoy it, and it will give Jesus encouragement for the ministry that he's doing on your behalf. As he speaks to the Father, saying your name and saying, "I care for this person, work in their life." As he speaks your name, that fragrance of your devotion encourages Jesus. Give him everything. May God bless you all.